Simple Solutions Lesson 21. Okay, problem number 1. Consider the square root of 8. You'll see that it has a non-repeating decimal. This makes it an irrational number. Is the square root of 12 rational or irrational? You may use your calculators to determine if the square root of 12 is rational or irrational. In doing so, you will see that the square root of 12 has a non-repeating decimal. Therefore, the square root of 12 is irrational. Okay, let's move on to problem 2. Identify the transversal in the graphic to the right. So looking at the graphic to the right, we're given information. If you notice in the solutions box, you see B, 2 lines C. That indicates that B and C are parallel lines. B, C. Definition of transversal, think back to geometry properties of Unit 1. A transversal is a line that cuts or runs through a set of parallel lines. Our parallel lines, the line cutting or running through. So this is our transversal, A. A is the transversal. Okay, problem 3. A number cube is tossed and the spinner is spun at the same rate. What is the probability of 1 on the cube and 4 on the spinner? Well, there are 6 sides on a cube and only one number 1. So the probability of getting a 1 is 1 out of 6. On your spinner, notice 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 numbers, but there's only one number 4. So that probability is 1 out of 4. And the problem asks, what is the probability of 1 on the cube and 4 on the spinner? So we multiply our probability of getting 1 on the cube times 1 on the spinner by 4 on the spinner, which is 1/4. Multiply across, and your answer is 1/24. Number 4. Word problem. Mary purchased 4 books online. The books were the same price each, and the shipping fee was $7.25. If the total cost was $55.25, what was the price of each book? Write and solve an algebraic equation. So let's write what we know. We know there are 4 books. We do not know the price of each book. That is our unknown. So we will identify that as X. And we do know there was a shipping cost, so we need to add $75.25. And we know the total cost. All of that equaled $55.25. So, to determine the price per book, we will solve for X. We will subtract $7.25 from each side, which now for X will equal $48. And we will divide both sides by 4. X equals $12. That is the cost of each book. Okay, problem number 5 is asking for us to work with square roots. Square root of 40 is between which 2 integers? Which is it closer to? So in order to determine which 2 integers the square root of 40 is closer to, we need to identify the perfect squares. So we'll start counting from 40, and we will count up. Square root of 40, square root of 41, square root of 42, square root of 43, square root of 44, 45, 46, square root of 47, square root of 48, square root of 49. A perfect square. Square root of 49. Now let's start counting, going down away from 40 to find the other square, the other closest perfect square. Square root of 40, square root of 39, square root of 38, 37, 36. Square root of 36. That's our next closest square. Square root of 36 equals 6. square root of 49 equals 7. 40 falls between 6 and 7. Which is closer? Well, in counting, we counted to 36, square root of 36, sooner than we did square root of 49. It's 6. 6 is closer. Okay, so we'll move on to 7, or problem 6 rather. Simplify, and this is what we are to simplify. 26 and 4/10 minus 13 and 7/10 in parentheses. All of that minus in parentheses 13 and 7/10 plus 7/10. The difference of 26 and 4/10 and 13 and 7/10 is 12 and 7/10, working in the parentheses. Now I go to the other set of parentheses. 13 and 7/10 plus 7/10 is 14 and 4/10. And I subtract, and my answer is negative 1 and 7/10. Okay, number 7. Determine the difference in area between circle A and circle B. So here's circle A and circle B. In order to determine the difference in area, we have to determine the area of each. So let's start with circle A. Recalling that the circumference area. The area of the circle equals pi times radius squared. And the radius is diameter divided by 2. So 50 divided by 2 is 25. So that's 25 squared. And that's pi. And 25 squared is 625. Okay, so let's now work with B. Again, pi times radius squared. Pi times the diameter of 40 divided by 2, which is 20. So that's our radius. 20 squared. Pi times 20 squared is 400. And then computing on your calculator those values, subtracting B from A, your answer is 706 5/10 centimeters squared. Okay, problem 8. Get that right. There we go. Is this equation true? And the equation is 16 minus 4 equals 16 plus negative 4. 16 minus 4 equals 16 plus negative 4 is equivalent to a positive 1 times negative 4, which is negative 4. Both sides are the same. Both sides equal 12. This statement is true. The question also asks, what is another way to write 23 plus negative 14? Again, 23, we have plus negative 14, so that's a positive 1 times a negative 14, and we may write it as such. So there you go. Yes, this is true, and this can be written as 23 minus 14. Number 9. Jack predicted that his baseball team would win 16 games this year. At the end of the season, his team had won 20 games. What was the percentage of error in Jack's prediction? Jack predicted 16? There were actually 20. So he was off by 4 of the 20 games. There were actually 1, and we can simplify 4 out of 20 to 1/5, and 1/5 in percentage is 20%. Okay? Number 10. Figure A has been transformed to figure A prime. Determine if they are congruent. How do you know? Okay, we can determine that by measuring the sides. The sides, so measure this length and this width. So this measures to approximately 1.5 centimeters, and this measures to approximately 4.0 centimeters. And comparing to our original, which has the same measurement, these are corresponding side lengths. And they are equal. So, yes, congruent. And this is how we know. Okay, moving on to number 11. Simplify 1 1/3, 4 1/2. So this is our fraction. And we want to change our form, convert this to greater than 1 instead of a mixed fraction. In doing so, 3 times 1 plus 1, 4/3. And our denominator is now 2 times 4 plus 1, 9, 9/2. And we are going to take our numerator and multiply it by the reciprocal of our denominator. Multiplying across, we will have 8/27. That will be your answer. Number 12. Is 13 9/12 rational or irrational? How do you know? Well, let's look at the decimal portion, 9/12. 9/12 is equivalent to 3/4, and that can be converted to a decimal of 75/100ths, and it stops right there. It is non-repeating. So, realizing that 13 9/12 is equivalent to 13 75/100ths, it is a rational number.